so long.
Oh, here we are.
Welcome back to the Loopcast. I'm joined by my co-hosts Josh and Erika, and yes, we're live.
In person.
In person. For the first time in 2 years. We've done this podcast for like 2 years.
Yeah, almost 2 years.
And Josh hides in his bunker in Petoskey. Erika's in rich social clubs in New Hampshire. And today we all hang out in the Midwest. So we get together 2 times a year. This is one of the 2 times, kind of time to rejuvenate. We did prepare a show, don't worry. But we did get some inspiring talks this morning about bigger picture stuff.
Yeah,
how do you feel about that?
We're going to pull that in, I think, right?
Are we?
Yeah. We had inspiration from our fearless leader, Brian Birch, who is newly back from the RNC convention.
Oh, yeah, good story.
He shared that with us a little bit. And,
That's right.
We're going to work that in.
And no one's talking about the RNC platform right now, or JD Vance.
I mean,
Josh is bored.
I was bored of it 3 times ago. The platform, I mean, who cares? Like, this is the dumbest thing. This is not the 19th century, okay? The political parties were transformed with campaign finance reform, first in 1974, and then again with McCain-Feingold, I think it was in 2002. Political parties do not have these big treasure chests, and they're not able to command their members in ways that they could before. Every man or woman for themselves have to run for House or Senate. There's no big backroom deal. I mean, there are some backroom deals, but like the idea of a platform that all binds its members and they impose party discipline, that's a joke. It's not the way it is. That's the way it was for the first 150 years in our country with the political parties, but that's not it anymore. So all this arguing about platform, I feel like you guys are still going off of stuff that's 100 years old. It's not that it's not important, but it's like, it's not, you know, it's a legacy.
World changing like it maybe once was.
It's a
Right,
lot.
but that being
it's a
said,
different ball game.
Yeah, that being said, to play devil's advocate a little bit.
Which you're good at. You're the good devil that you are.
Yes, that's right. The platform is a tool. It's a political tool. It can be used as a weapon to beat people down. And as Tom McCluskey was telling me this morning, it's basically because the language on the pro-life has been walked back a little bit, and then this really weird 14th Amendment thing, but it's up to the states, but there's a federal right to life. It's kind of strange. It's going to be used as a cudgel to basically screw over pro-lifers when they're trying to
I disagree.
push.
I think the biggest thing about the platform is that the Trump campaign is like, why would we give a ton of ammunition to the other side? And this is what I said. We talked about this the last few episodes. I said, look, in the 2012 presidential election, we had this discussion about whether or not our federal government should force Catholic nuns to buy birth control. It's like, Catholic nuns, they're celibate, most of them, I would hope. Why is the federal government trying to force them to buy contraceptions? This is insane. And so Republicans are like, yeah, First Amendment, dude, we should totally not do this. This is crazy. And Mitt Romney's like, yeah, you know, we should have a religious liberty. We should not force Catholic nuns to have birth control. That's kind of crazy. And then what is the Death Star of the media? Billion-dollar corporations spending story after story on TV and newspaper everywhere. Mitt Romney's going to take your birth control. So
this is quickly becoming your favorite story of all time.
You've
told us now.
It's like you can't. You have to understand the world in which we live. It's like avoid pitfalls. So me,
Josh, if I could set up though. So there was a clip I saw that did a good job of this. I think it was CNN was interviewing Eric Trump, and they basically said, "Hey, it seems very clear that Donald Trump and the Republican Party are moving more to the center. There's nothing on the platform about abortion, leaving it up to the states, and there's nothing on there about same-sex marriage, things that have been a part of the platform for a long time." And Eric Trump, I thought his answer was interesting and relevant. He said, yeah, for those of you paying attention, my father has always been kind of in the middle. It's not like he all of a sudden changed who he was. He's always kind of been this way.
Well, that's actually accurate.
And I think it's accurate. And I think it broke a lot of people's hearts kind of because they saw it. They see Trump as this larger than life figure to bring them what they want. For a lot of Catholics, it's like, okay, we want to start bringing some Catholic teaching. But I think it's a somber moment for people to realize where we are at as a culture.
Okay, now here's the next question on that then. Like, isn't Trump being a little bit more honest about where he's at, even though he's the guy everyone calls a liar all the time, he bloviates, he exaggerates because he's a showman, but he actually tends to be a little bit more transparent of this is where I'm at. Whereas John McCain and Mitt Romney and these guys were oh yeah, blah 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 blah,
Right,
and they didn't believe it.
talk,
They
and
didn't
Right.
believe a word of
It's
it.
kind of the reverse, I think, from what we're used to. We're used to getting promises that they renege on, and then Trump much more transparently, hey, this is where we're at, and then you can move a little bit. And I think that's kind of the point. Like for me, to see people be so negative, I've seen this with J.D. Vance as well, and just be like, well, the RNC platform isn't the Catechism of the Catholic Church, therefore I'm out.
Well,
right? I'm
and
throwing
here's
up my hands. Josh, if I could finish. They're throwing up their hands and saying they're done. And I think that's kind of an immature,
silly,
very silly and not productive use of time. I think there's a lot to be excited about with J.D. Vance. And I think Trump provides an honesty and platform where we can move the football, where we can get things done. Guess what? For all the people mad at J.D. Vance about mifepristone, America as a culture right now is not in the place where they're ready to remove that. They're just not. They're not ready for the place to remove contraception. They're not ready to remove IVF. They're not. That's not an indictment on the political process. That's an indictment on where we are as a culture. Now, I think from the pulpit and in Catholicism, absolutely we should have priests championing these causes, bringing them up, pushing on it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying to give up on it. I'm just saying we need to get to a place where, hey, all the people of goodwill are in a room here. Now let's make the Catholic case for how we should change society. Not
I
this
love
bickering,
that.
infighting
Yeah.
before
I mean,
we can even get anywhere
and
right
I think
now.
this is what Brian was telling us this morning, right? He was talking about, okay, we have all these issues, and absolutely these issues are important. Immigration, education, and of course the preeminent moral issue of our time, abortion. And that's not to discount these, but that when we get caught up in this infighting and it's not perfect, and J.D. Vance said this in this interview, and his voting record is this, which actually I looked up his voting record on the issue of abortion, and it is so solid. If you actually look at what he's done versus this one interview, that's beside the point. But we can't let it distract us from the bigger question at play here, and that is, what is politics for? What are we doing this for, and what are Catholics going to bring to the table here? And I think in addition to priests pushing hard on these ideals, Catholic vote, like this is part of what we do too. But you can't push for your ideals if you're, in jail under the FACE Act.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right? Am I right?
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And I feel like some people give us a hard time of like, you're not supposed to vote based on the alternative. You vote based on your conscience. But it's so hard for me it's hard for me to get outside of the world of what we've lived through for the past 3-4 years. Like we see Mark Houck get the absolute book thrown at him with the Department of Justice. We see Lauren Handy and all these pro-life warriors just get thrown away in jail by special federal counsels. Like this has nothing to do with justice.
Right.
So the Trump campaign, Josh always brings up, he's one of the first politicians to be like, hey, pro-lifers, what do you want?
Right.
And treating them as someone worth listening to, instead of kind of the George Bushes or whatever, where they kind of campaign on being this like, oh, well, good morals, whatever, and then cave, like you say, fold like a cheap tent on everything. So I'm like, I wish that Catholics and Christians could look at this moment as a tremendous opportunity instead of being angry. Like two things that really stuck out to me. First off, like Amber Rose spoke at the RNC platform, which you're saying it's kind of a goofy party. Like we're all kind of acknowledging it's a little bit silly. Harmeet Dillon said like a Sikh prayer, and I saw these Christians melt down about like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Like praying to a demon, like we're a Christian country, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, how are we going to build a coalition with people of goodwill if the second something is not up to your standards, as like, I'm going to acknowledge it as a Catholic that really believes Catholic teaching is pretty extreme to the general public. Instead, listening to that speech Amber Rose gave of like, I drank the Kool-Aid. I thought Trump was a racist. My dad said, okay, prove it. I went back. I could not prove it. If anything, I found the other side was. To me, I'm like, that's a genuine discovery that I'm like, I really appreciate that you came forward and said that. I think a lot of people fall in that camp. Harmeet Dillon, people are mad about her. She was a warrior during COVID. I mean, she went after, as an excellent lawyer, all of these problems that we all lived through when our churches were shut down. It's not like we don't have common ground here. So I'm like, I just wish people could see this as like, oh my gosh, J.D. Vance, phenomenal pick. What would you rather have had? A pander pick to pick up the black vote, to pick up something else? I'm like,
Doug
we got
Durgan?
one of our guys in there. Like, if we could talk about J.D. Vance a little bit here, like,
Yeah.
J.D. Vance is one of our
Breaking
guys.
news. Yeah.
Baptized at St. Gertrude's in Cincinnati, interviewed with Brian Birch, had a very intellectual conversion to Catholicism. If anything, I see him as a smarter, more disciplined version of Trump, kind of a coronation of what could be the future of this nationalist populist movement. And that really excites me.
Yeah.
There's a lot there that excites me as a Catholic.
Yeah, I mean, J.D. Vance is so young compared to the octogenarians we've been looking at forever. Like, he's 39 years old. He has a young family. He's brilliant. He is so smart, like just articulate. I was reading, he had a shorter version of his conversion story in The Lamp magazine a couple of years ago. It's so learned. Like, he's quoting Augustine and he's quoting church fathers and like all these different broad swaths. The man is so smart. I can't wait for the Kamala Harris debate. And I just a little tinge of guilty, sinful satisfaction going through my veins right now. I'm like,
although I did see that people were tweeting that Kamala Harris is going to win. Like, they're like, JD should be scared. I was like, I don't think JD.
Were like, he should be scared. I'm like, we are unburdened by what has been, Kamala. We are all about the future and time. Man. Have you thought about space and time?
I think about it from time to time.
Let me finish.
Yeah. But Josh, thoughts on JD, like.
Well, again, real quick, first on the platform, again, I would just harken back to the point that you, like, what are you going to care more about, this document or the 4 years that he was in office? It's not like he's unproven. Like, he was in office for 4 years. He put in really good people in at the Justice Department and at the Department of Health and Human Services, affected policy in a pro-life way, in just about everything that we wanted. Mm-hmm. And obviously 3 picks to the Supreme Court that helped overturn Roe v. Wade. I mean, he delivered on so many things. Mm-hmm. And he's enough to say, I'm not with you on everything you guys want. I'm going to do this and push the ball forward this way, but that's where I'm at. And it's like, okay, that's honest. I get it. And just because I'm going to vote for him doesn't mean I have to then never care about that issue again, or not try to press him, or keep pushing the issue to other people. And
of course not.
Right.
Like this idea that somehow I'm signing a blood oath and now I have to be just as compromised on this issue. Like, no, well, what? I don't. Yeah. It's just understanding that we've had Trump, and by this first time where I have, two people that can say they each had a term in office. They both had served as our president. And which one is going to be the better one for the next 4 years? Where am I going to have a better chance to affect policy? Well, that's a no-brainer.
I think it's important. Where I get frustrated online with Catholics who are like, okay, I'm out. I'm done. The Republican Party doesn't represent me. That is not what we're saying at all. Like, this is eyes wide open. Like, we get it. Trump is not a Catholic. Trump is not fully pro-life, clearly. I mean, he's like okay with killing babies who are little, or, It is very clear, eyes wide open. Will the hard?
We support him despite those flaws.
Exactly, despite
not because
the
of
flaws.
them. Like, I don't get that.
But as Catholics, the Catholic political vision is so much bigger than the United States of America. It predates the United States of America. It even predates Jesus Christ. It is all of salvation history. It's the idea that here on earth we can build. We are building towards the good, the human life together, pointing toward heaven. I was reading a little bit of St. Augustine's City of God, and just being struck again by City of God versus the City of Man, and where Washington, D.C. operates, right? Republican, Democrat. Where the swamp operates is the City of Man. And what's true about that? The City of Man is where death has the final word, right? It's where the horizon ends with death. And so it's this fight to like make the most live, eat, drink, and be merry. Tomorrow we die on one end, or just like gain power and fame and glory while you can, like very Roman Empire. But what we see and what Catholics have to bring to the swamp is that the horizon's beyond death, right? That there is more to human life. So we know that the City of God is only fully realized in the kingdom of heaven. But we also want to draw as many people with us. Our project is so much bigger than RNC 2024. It's so much bigger than election 2024. And that's what's going to keep us going. And even joyfully being screwed over. Like, we are going to get screwed over. Yeah, the Republicans are going to disappoint us.
Maybe. I mean.
But.
No, I mean, like, maybe. But I mean, like, why are we're going to still be fighting? I mean, this is the thing. Like, I don't understand. It's not like, oh, gosh, I supported Trump Vance despite these things, and then suddenly I'm so totally surprised. Like, no, like, we know the game. We understand the stakes. We understand what the positions that they put out here. And like with Vance, it's like people that are upset about this. Again, I just feel like the platform part is just a stupid thing. It's like, how many people vote in November based on this.
Yeah, I'm excited about
how
this.
much,
Like, I'm genuinely excited.
How much legislation, before the House and Senate, how many of these members are like, well, no, wait a minute now. What was that presidential platform we had?
Let me pull it
Here
out.
it is.
No one cares. I mean, it's like,
Right.
I'm sorry, I just don't care. I honestly don't. Like, it doesn't seem to matter too much. And again, I guess, J.D. Vance he's wrong on a few of these things, and he's so much more right than so many other people before him that were like, this guy's awesome, and he gets it. He gets the moment. He understands what's at stake. And on the most fundamental, important issue of the time, he's like mostly there, except he's making some rhetorical concessions because he's in these gotcha interviews. And like, to me, it's like, why would we hold a vice presidential candidate at a higher standard than our bishops and priests? Mm-hmm. I mean, I was 35 years old before I heard a priest at a Sunday Mass talk about abortion. Mm. And yet I'm going to expect every single national candidate for office to be totally flawless and be able to dispatch every, little rhetorical.
To go back to the age thing too, the mark of, one of the great marks of a great political leader, I'm trying to get my words in order, is to be able to pick your successor and build for the future. And that is abjectly what Biden has failed to do, right? That's why they don't know what to do. Right. But with Trump picking such a young, smart man who, again, he is in our camp. And he's, for all the flaws, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to keep apologizing for that. But I think
me neither.
It is exciting, and we should be excited. And I would point anyone who wants to do more on J.D. Vance, point you over to First Things in May. Matthew Schmitz did an article on his Christian conservatism turning into Christian populism, and I thought of Pogo, our little angry populist.
Angry populist,
yeah. Own it.
I don't know if you're angry. Yeah. I'm angry. Yeah. You're more.
He's more like a jolly, like
peeved.
a happy-go-lucky.
Yeah. But yeah, it's funny with J.D. Vance. Like, I was going. First off, anyone who wants to get a picture of J.D. Vance should not go to that MSNBC interview. They should go just Google it and read what all the lefties have to say about him.
Oh my gosh,
it is unbelievable how much they hate this guy. Like, he's making all the right people upset, and his pick also upsets all the right Republicans that I despise.
Oh yeah,
Nikki Haley, Lindsey Graham, so J.D. Vance, veteran, grew up in a horrible situation in Ohio, raised by his grandparents, house torn by domestic abuse and the opioid crisis, wrote Hillbilly Elegy, and then he goes to Yale Law School, has a successful career in business, comes back to Ohio, starts a nonprofit, runs for office. Now, Catholic Vote was involved with him in his race. And it's also funny too, people are thinking about the alternative. He ran against Tim Ryan, who
in the general, right?
Hilarious to think we're nitpicking him on abortion because Tim Ryan is a no-holds-barred
self-proclaimed Catholic, right?
Self-proclaimed Catholic, pro-abortion.
Actually had that pro-life record for a while, and then in 2006, he's forget it. And then he went fully pro-abortion because he was preparing to run for higher office.
Right. And so you look at JD, 39, young kids. He has appealed to people my age. And I love how he understands how to speak about America. Mm-hmm. He talks about America as not an idea. We're not this collective of progress. We're a country with borders, with traditions, and people that need to be put first. And I saw that first with he's willing to throw elbows with even intra-party leadership. I think back to U.S. Steel. He was big on U.S. Steel staying in American hands. He saw it firsthand how all the manufacturing jobs left America. We got sold out on this promise of being able to buy things from Walmart for a little bit cheaper. And all of a sudden you have these Rust Belt towns completely burnt out, people addicted to opioids. He sees it and understands it.
Yeah, actually, you know what? You should think about this. For a good 15 years, the Republican Party signed off on candidates from George W. Bush, or George H. Bush, George W. Bush, McCain, Romney, all of whom were completely fine with offshoring, as they call it.
Selling out
our industrial base, right? And we had hardly any victories for the family and on the life cause. Mm-hmm. And only when we bring someone in who's actually, we should respect our hardworking men and women, the blue-collar people that make this country possible. And Trump learned that. And it's maybe God rewarded us for realizing, you know what, there has to be this understanding of solidarity. And after that happens, what happened? He gets in there and Roe's gone.
Yeah.
It's like maybe God.
Yeah, this
maybe
And his background's, if
Who
I could
knows?
before, his background's important to me because who I despise the most are the DC rats that are career politicians, 30, 40 years. They don't know what it's like. Like, as much as Joe Biden wants to say that he was a bus driver and he saw 2 gay people
was
kiss in
everything.
Delaware, like,
he was raised in the Palestinian community. He was raised in the black church. He was raised in the Jewish synagogue.
Like, Joe Biden's a funny example of this. All these politicians want to pretend like they're somehow everyman. Like, JD's upbringing is important to me because it's similar to mine. And so few DC politicians actually understand and or care, in a lot of cases really despise, Midwest Americans like me who have genuine religious convictions. I saw that a lefty article wrote, "Oh my gosh, we got this gotcha on JD. He believes the devil is real."
yeah, I saw
And I'm
that.
like,
I'm like, well, he is.
stop trying to convince me that I like this guy. I already like him.
Yeah.
Like, and me and most of America believe the devil is real. Like somehow that's a knock. Like, he's one of our guys. And like, I hope that, of course, like, you get disappointed with certain things. You got to work with people. Politics is messy. It's not perfect, but he feels like someone that represents me and could represent a future of this vision that I share for America.
Yeah, and
one that has secure borders, one that respects its people, one that keeps jobs in house, one that doesn't sell out the middle
and
of
you don't
America.
have to win every argument today. Like that, the idea is you get somebody who's like with you on almost everything, and you fight to build up the culture and the polity to the point where you can start making some of these other gains and get going in the right direction.
Yeah, I
like
think
this idea
Sorry,
that they have
I
to win
interrupted,
everything.
Erika.
Yeah, I think what I get from JD Vance is that he understands the cultural moment that we're in, and that here in this post-Roe world that we're living in, we weren't ready for it, right? We were not ready for post-Dobbs because I don't think some pro-life leaders did, but I don't think we anticipated the wasteland that Roe left behind culturally. That, like, look, we've lost so much of the culture war, not just in the pro-life cause, in education, in all the institutions. We talk about this all the time. And this was a quote this is just from May, right? He's talking to Matthew Schmitz over at First Things. And he said, when we think about Christian conservatism, we think of sanctity of marriage, sanctity of life. And of course, these things are important. And I certainly believe the church is teaching on all these things. And yet, there's an entire Christian moral and economic worldview that is completely cut out in this moment of modern American politics. And I think it's important to try to bring that back. And so he understands that, what a radical minority we are in many ways, but that getting back to the table is so important.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we're planting the seeds right now for a lot of future growth. I mean, like Florida, Indiana, all these states, like Arkansas even, it's awesome. They're doing school choice so that parents actually have the opportunity to have their children flee these cesspools, and we can know how much of a difference a good, solid education can make. I think, we have that ability to, because I feel like people, for too long, like I look at the baby boomers above me, and they're like, if we could just somehow get the toothpaste back in the tube, guys, you don't get it.
It's gone, yeah.
It's over. Like every generation not only has to put up a hero on the pop charts, you gotta tend to the garden and make sure the next generation has a chance. I mean,
I think toothpaste back in the tube is like the image of 2024. I'm hearing it. I hear it everywhere. Maybe it's just because we all listen to each other. Like everyone's using. Like Ben Shapiro said it last week. Michael Knowles said it
I don't
last
listen
week.
to those
We've got
guys.
Exposed.
I don't listen to those guys. They listen to me, maybe. I don't know.
That's all right.
It's like I watched this
Toothpaste back in
video
the tube.
about kind of bro country from the 2010s. And there's a phrase that every song used in the span of 5 years, like blue jeans painted on tight. If you go back genuinely, like 10 to 15 different songs use that exact phrase. It's like, what do they call it? It's not Mandela effect. That's when you like see something different.
I mean, I don't know. I listen to Outlaw Country from the 70s. So
you ain't listen to that, brother. So actually 2 things. I have one that was not initially we're going to talk about. I'm like curious your guys' thoughts on it. But then the other one was about the sloped roofs. I will talk sloped roofs after this. So
Okay.
just I didn't even run this by you guys, but I'm curious. So obviously we had a long show about potential assassination where Trump was shot in the ear. And some of the fallout of that has been interesting to me, one of which being many people joking about the shooter missing. So, for example, Jack Black, band member of his, did that.
disgusting.
But there's also just people like all over the place on Facebook. And that we could talk about that on its own. But I've seen now, like, so libs of TikTok, for example, will expose people who post like should have missed or celebrating it, something like that. And then they've been getting fired from their jobs. So like Home Depot, there's a lady who got fired, teacher, someone that got fired. And I'm curious your thoughts on this, because people, of course, are now throwing around like, oh, I thought Republicans hated cancel culture. I thought conservatives hated cancel culture. Yeah. And then there's the other side of the argument who are saying the left gleefully did this to everyone that wanted to walk outside during COVID. So I don't know. Like, what do you think about that? Is the retribution justified? Do you think that's like something that we should engage in? Or
mean, in terms of political speech, if it had been the case where, like, let's say what had happened was Donald Trump fell, walking off stage and landed flat and like had egg all over his face and everyone was laughing and mocking him, I wouldn't say that some employee should be fired for making fun of him for falling down on his face and, looking like a buffoon. Like, whatever, it's a free country, you can say that. When you're like, gosh darn it, I wish that guy had been murdered.
I wish his head had been blown off.
Actually, polite society, they could say, I don't, you can go take a break for a while, and maybe someone else will hire you, but we're done with you. I don't have a problem. Cancel culture, the idea with why we think cancel culture is bad, it's that if somebody just exercises their normal First Amendment right to just say, hey, I think we should, I don't think climate change is real. Oh, you gotta get fired. Like, that's basically saying there's a very super narrow view of acceptable opinions, which is basically only what the far left is. And any opinion outside of that, you should not be able to hold a regular job in polite society. Like, that's baloney. But if you say, actually, you shouldn't hope that people are murdered, yeah, that's not cancel culture. You're being a jerk.
Yeah,
now, I do have to say, though, it is worth recalling, like, your guys' natural reaction to this is like, oh, it's so terrible that band member said that he should have missed or whatever, shouldn't have missed. And I'm like, dude, I laugh at this. I smile. Maybe I'm cynical, but I'm like, dude, I want the communists hating me so much that they want me dead. Like, I hope I'm causing that much trouble that they're like, I want the guys at America Magazine to go, that Mercer, finally he's dead. The Jebbies, they're going to be dancing when I finally kick the bucket, I hope, because they realize I'm actually fighting for what is good, true, and of course they hate the Catholic faith. So.
Yeah, and this is where the Hitler
Jimmy
rhetoric
Martin, you hear me?
Yeah. This is where like the Hitler rhetoric comes in. Like, if you really believe like that Trump is Hitler and you really think he is the end of America, well, then, Operation Valkyrie, like, I was a fan of Klaus von Stauffenberg. You got to take out the guy. So in a way, if I understand the, I wish they hadn't missed, because if Jack Black is totally sold on this is Hitler in our time, whether, I don't think he is, but yeah, that would be like that would be.
Well, he canceled his show. He canceled the show. Yeah. His talent agency. It was the guitarist.
It wasn't Jack Black.
It wasn't Jack Black, but Jack Black canceled the tour, and then his guitarist got dropped from his talent agency. Mm-hmm. To me, I'm like, sure, you have free speech, but like, there's consequences for your actions.
Consequences to free speech, and I think like wishing someone had their head blown off on national television. I wouldn't want to employ someone like that either, and I would like to know if someone really wishes that. Now, where I don't think I think where libs of TikTok did cross the line. I think it was just yesterday they posted. So someone went into a Home Depot with a camera, and they go up to just this woman who's obviously at the end of her shift. She looks exhausted, and they put the camera right in her face, and they're like, do you know your company supports Pride? What do you feel about that? And they're like, the woman just like looks at the camera, and then it was posted on libs of TikTok like this gotcha moment, and I'm like, that is not helpful. Like,
it seems to me kind of like a consequence of just being like too online.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's like,
I don't mind going up to congressmen like that.
Yeah, right. Those are elected officials that.
Like someone who works at Home Depot. What? Like what? No.
Yeah. Sometimes you get. Stupid. I think sometimes with like being too online, like people do things. They're convinced because they see the online reactions to stuff that when they go do something in public, that they're going to get the same reaction. And most of the time, people are just like, dude, this is kind of lame.
You're just
like,
a jerk.
Right. You're literally just being a jerk. Yeah, it's like important to touch grass sometimes. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that whole thing, because I just, regardless of what I think about that situation, I remember so viscerally over the last 4 years, like, hey, I'm not going to wear a mask outside. Like, and I had people be like, yeah, you're a grandma killer. Like, you shouldn't be employed. You shouldn't be in polite society. So like,
well, I don't like your grandma anyway. That's what you tell them. No.
Right.
Yeah, like I remember the time where this was like all that you all did. So I don't know. I don't take that for what it's worth. I didn't like that period of time very much. But yeah, on this. So we get some more clarity on why the Secret Service failed on the Trump assassination
They
protection.
have an explanation.
So they went and talked to Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle, who is kind of being known online as Cheeto. And she
Would
said,
he give her a month before she resigns?
she has to. So they were asking her, why was that roof not cleared? A roof 160 yards away with a clear shot at the president. And she said, well, we didn't want to station people on a slightly sloped roof for the safety of our Secret Service.
Nice.
I think it's the wrong safety. I think
yeah.
she has her safeties backwards. Yeah, and then then they showed there's a shot with the sloped roof that the killer was, or the would-be killer, thank God, was on. And then
well,
they
he
have,
still killed somebody.
Then he did. He was a
Did.
killer. And then they have the two snipers who ended up taking him out, who are on a sloped roof.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
you're just like,
it's
this
just
is
that
pathetic.
sloped, yeah.
Like, stop lying.
What is she came from PepsiCo? Like, how is there a PepsiCo to Secret Service pipeline
Well,
of
I think she
executives?
was in something before PepsiCo. And now I'm forgetting what it was.
Security.
She had done more security beforehand, so it's not the craziest thing. But again, with this, like there's the woman who looked like the female Shane Gillis who couldn't holster her gun.
That was bad, yeah. Yeah, that was bad.
So crazy.
I don't even know if I have much to say, but that was bad, dude. That was pretty bad.
I mean, honestly, though, the thing is, I would never again, I think nothing is always 100%, of course, on this stuff. But in general, we as Catholics do have an understanding of the masculine and the feminine genius. And the feminine genius is
So much better.
is to try to bring people together
And to do
and to
it.
comfort and to nurture. And the masculine is to go forward, out into the world or whatever. And the tendency for men, like the man who lost his life, who was behind Trump, he's a
Saved his
firefighter,
family,
and he
yeah.
just
Yeah.
immediately gets in defense. This is what a man does. He just tackles his whole family and puts himself on top of them, and he saves their lives, and he loses his own life in the process. And then there's the photo of the one Secret Service agent female, and she's like ducking.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you doing? What are you ducking for? Jump on the person you're supposed to protect, which is President Trump.
Right.
And to me, like, for all the crap men get for the last 4 decades, let me tell you something. When it comes to a fire or something like this, it is in our nature. Like the firefighters, we run into that fire, or we protect our women and children.
If you've been well formed, right?
Yeah,
If
okay.
you're a
I have
man
kind
in
of a crazy,
full-
I have
a
kind
man
of a
in
crazy
full
thought
will
on
do
that. We'll see how this goes over.
All right.
So, we were talking about telling stories this morning.
I love a theory.
Yeah, well, I don't even know if this is theory, but we're talking about telling stories. And the thing about stories is they shape your narrative of what you think is virtuous and not virtuous. So
Absolutely.
you root for the hero.
How you see the world.
You don't root for the villain. And the reason you don't root for the villain is because you want to be trained to hate what is evil. So there's been this, of course, like over the last 10 years trend
Oh my
of these
gosh.
like
Don't get me started.
super feminine hero that somehow has no flaws, except their only flaw is that they don't understand how powerful that they really are.
Yes.
And they often are making
Captain Marvel.
Exactly, like or
the Jedi girl,
I was just thinking the same thing.
Rey.
Rey, literally only flaw. She learned the Force in 2 seconds, only and stronger than everyone. Only flaw, didn't realize how strong she is. But like, it's almost like these stories have
When she
been.
finally realized she was a girl boss, that's when it all came together.
And these aren't good. These aren't even good stories. Clearly, you look at
Right.
go to Rotten Tomatoes; they're not performing well. But they're basically created by activists to try to sell you a worldview that does not match up with reality.
Right.
And
Well,
never
there's
did
no
I.
good or evil.
Right,
There's
and never.
no-
Well, and the other trend
all-
too that I really am annoyed with are the anti-hero, like the complicated
Yeah,
villain.
the
that-
complicated villain, and you're supposed to feel for the villain.
Yeah.
And there's a place for that. Like in realist movies where you're talking about, like, say a biopic or something, like people are complicated in real life. But you have to have stories where evil is evil and it is defeated, where the dragon is slain, where you have the hero who becomes a hero through trial sacrifice. If your society is stripped of those, and this is what you see in the Disney movies, kind of starting with like Little Mermaid, right? And you got the only really bad people are the John Smiths who come and they like
the white people,
take away the white people who took Pocahontas' lands and stuff, and she couldn't sing to the corn blue moon anymore, and she was so sad. Anyway, but you see that sort of devaluing of the hero villain narrative for children really, really young in the Disney turnover, and that's why my children don't watch anything.
Yeah, and on the anti-hero point,
after 1988.
Listen, there's some movies where the anti-hero trope is used effectively and is interesting, but it's become so dominant now, paired along with the feminine hero, where it's selling people a picture of reality that's not true. And so you get, for example, the Secret Service, head of Secret Service, female, saying that diversity, top priority, we need 30% of Secret Service to be female. And people don't bat an eye at that initially. And then you get something like this happens, and everyone's like, what are we doing here? Like, how could that even...
At the RNC, the diversity of the Secret Service. So 2 days later, Trump walks into the RNC and it is 100% males around him.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Reality smacks you in the face.
Right.
And you're like, oh, I guess we actually need large men around the large man.
That's why they said
supposed to put
in the
between
1970s, what is a conservative? It's a liberal who was mugged last night.
Yeah. Mugged by reality.
Facts. So that kind of made sense, right? That was a coherent.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep, I like
well,
that.
the thing is, like,
No, it's
part of
true.
that, by the way, the Girl Boss movie stuff was, they had to transition it. So the transition before we got that was like Tomb Raider. Like, well, we're going to have feminine heroes, but we have to make them look like cartoon babes or whatever. The guys will go along with it. And then that was just one step to glory. And the thing about the Star Wars thing, I watched Star Wars a ton as a kid, and I kind of grew out of it. But
should have won that
Rey
draft.
or whatever. It's like you don't need like a fake. She has no personality, and she just like all of a sudden blossoms into a fully grown like total hero. Well, look. You can have strong female characters in Star Wars. Like, I don't know, maybe Princess Leia. She's the freaking princess.
Icon.
And she could still kick butt. I mean, like, what was that? There's no...
Yep.
Drove me crazy.
No, I agree on that. But final on the assassination front. So we get an interview with President Biden. So his reaction to all this has been fascinating to me for all the wrong reasons. So he does an interview where he gets confronted by Lester Holt for saying, like, the day before, a couple days before, like,
days before, right?
We're going to put a bullseye
July
on Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we play clips, or are we not there today?
We're not there today. Apologies.
Choose your own adventure.
We're working on it.
Imagine it in your mind.
Imagine in your mind. I'm not going to reenact it. But basically, he was asked on the bullseye, and his response was, I didn't say that. And for the first time,
no, to be clear, he said, I said, I didn't say crosshairs. I said bullseye because I wanted the focus to be on
wasn't
Donald
the flip?
Trump.
He's like, I didn't say bullseye. I said crosshairs.
No, he said I didn't say crosshairs, because crosshairs would be like the technical, like you're gonna shoot him now, whereas bullseye could be like a bow and arrow target or something. So I think he was trying to walk it back, but
quickly
it was
confronted and saying, no, you did say this.
Lester Holt was like on it.
You're exonerating yourself of something we weren't accusing you of. Let me accuse you of the thing you actually said.
Yeah.
So, that interview suggests two things about this, and I've been talking about this with a lot of people. One, I think many internal Democrats I've seen sources say it's over. The election's over. They have no chance of winning. The Democrats now do not want to sacrifice a superstar of their party to losing this election. They're just going to let Biden hang out to dry.
Ride with Biden.
Number one. Number two, it also suggests to me, by picking J.D. Vance, I see that as kind of a future coronation of this MAGA movement, the national populist movement, where if he was concerned about not winning, maybe he would have chosen more of a pander pick. But I think he's now very confident at this point to where I need to think about the future. I'm thinking about the next 3 elections, next 4 elections.
And he came that close to dying. Like, what if I do die? Like, I want I want this guy to be president if I can't be.
Mori, baby.
Right, and the fact that he's still running, like, again, we talked about this, all that he sacrificed to be here, he's now literally been shot. He is so clearly committed to this, like, future vision for America, like, how do we right the ship? And with read J.D. Vance and all these things, I don't know if people are prepared for how extreme some things are going to need to be, like in terms of switching out personnel, in terms of slashing government jobs, like mass deportation potentially.
Well,
it's
and I
going to
think-
be extreme, and it has to be.
I think the thing that a lot of people have liked about Trump, over the last, since he came on the scene in 2015, is his instincts are right, even if he doesn't articulate it well. And so what Selena Zeno, she's this reporter from Pennsylvania,
Really good.
and she was actually the one guy jumped on her, and because she was in the
Line of
path
fire.
of the bullets, yeah. And she said, I'm trying to see if I get it right, but like the media would always, like the voters, didn't take the words he said literally, but knew what he meant. And for the media, it was the opposite. They didn't believe anything he had to say, but they took him literally each word, where he would have that showman kind of exaggeration, as opposed to like, Biden who just flat lie. Like, my son died in Iraq. Like, he did not die in Iraq.
No.
What are you saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, Biden would do absolute flat lies. Back when I was a professor, you were never a professor. What are you saying?
I taught constitutional
I taught
law.
I was top of my
Constitutional law.
class.
Sure,
Like,
buddy.
you were
No.
not topping your class. I mean, like, what you just stupid things, the resume lies that politicians always
I
do.
grew up in a synagogue.
Whereas
No.
Trump's like, I'm the best one ever. I'm the best president ever. Like, oh, okay. I mean, really, you're better than Lincoln.
Better
But
than
you
Washington.
Just roll
better
your
than
eyes. It's like
Lincoln.
whatever.
That's my favorite quote
No,
ever.
it's just like,
I love it.
who cares?
But
Oh, man.
yeah, so and then also on the headline front, we have Gold Bar Bob. They got
Gold
him.
Bar Bob.
Oh.
Bob Menendez.
Guilty on all counts.
Yeah, convicted felon.
Yeah, for those unaware, Senator Bob Menendez, the great senator from Egypt. He actually is from New Jersey, but he took bribes, including gold bars, from Egypt and I believe another country. And he was just now indicted, affectionately known as Gold Bar
convicted,
Bob.
yeah.
Yeah,
He's already
been
indicted, yeah,
convicted
yeah.
Tuesday, all 16 counts, following 2-month criminal trial. Faced charges of corruption, bribery, obstruction of justice, acting as a foreign agent, and conspiracy.
So what do you think? Is the Senate now going to kick him out?
They should.
Are Democrats really going to?
No.
Or are they going
They
to say,
can't
well,
kick
wait a minute
anyone
now,
out.
Trump thing, he hasn't been sentenced yet, so maybe they'll wait. That's the card they'll play. That it's a 51-49 Senate, so Democrats would be down to 50-49. They would only have a 1-seat majority, but
the election's up.
his
It's like
seat is
months.
up
It's a matter
too,
of months.
which
yeah.
he'll get replaced by Democrat Andy Kim. Anyway, Menendez decided to run in the general. But I just want to point a note that when you talk about the 100 senators, and there, so many of them are very bad, but he is truly is a scumbag. He is a piece of work, and I am so delighted. You talk about Schadenfreude.
Sure.
Like,
Do we talk about short and
well, we did earlier. He didn't say the word, but
Is that our thing?
I gotta say, I am so happy to see a horrible, wretched man get the just punishment, and I await the sentencing. He was singular in trying to stop my good friend and fellow Catholic Vote co-founder Joe Sella. He was instrumental in slowing his confirmation to be ambassador, precisely because of the work that Joe had done for pro-life stuff. And here's this so-called Catholic senator, Bob Menendez, attacking a fellow Catholic because he's Catholic. And, he could have started his term and done that much more for the people. But, no one hears about some of these stories. But for like 6 months, my friend was not able to carry on the work that. And so, like, all this talk about Democrats and unity and like, we need to move the thing forward. We need government that is responsive and works. And you're like, you're really going to stop this guy from being ambassador to Fiji because he's Catholic?
Yep.
And you're
Yeah.
Catholic. I mean,
It's just
Bob Menendez,
vindictiveness.
scumbag.
Well, maybe Egypt told them to block him. or
Hey, maybe
something.
he could run for office in Egypt.
I feel like we
Right,
need
right.
an American Dante. Like, we need all you kids out there who are like at Wyoming and you like write poetry on the ranch or something. You know how Dante like populated the circles of hell, and
yes.
and the purgatorial levels and the circles of heaven. So that's both that too. But like, we need this in poetic
Hell's
form.
where it's really interesting, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before we do Twilight Zone, we will be attending the National Eucharistic Congress
Yes,
here
tomorrow.
in Indianapolis.
I'm pumped. Here we are.
Any general thoughts, excitement? National Eucharistic Congress. What's going on?
It's Jesus. Like, you got to be excited.
Yeah,
No, it's
how could you not
exciting.
love Jesus unless you're soupage and don't want the Eucharistic procession to go through your town?
Did you see the film of the Eucharistic procession when it
I
went
haven't
through
seen it yet.
Chicago?
He literally
they
sprinted.
were booking. They were like sprinting around corners. There was no canopy. It was just like, what
That
are
was
you
bad.
doing? Like trying to get this over as fast as possible. But that
It's almost like he
I don't want to
doesn't
be
really
negative. I don't want to be
believe yet.
negative.
Okay. Yeah,
I have
positive.
to admit. Okay, I was going into this with the pilgrimages coming across the country. There's going to be a big event. Okay, another big rally. I was just like, okay, USCCB. Like, is this just going to be? It's just, come on, guys. Like, is this really where we want to be spending? I was a little bit like, Judas Iscariot there when he's like, why are we spending money on perfume for Jesus? I was like that. But watching the last few months, the images of the Eucharistic processions, like Jesus on the boat, Jesus going through the streets of the inner cities, and people kneeling in fields out in farm country before the Eucharist, it has been genuinely moving, and I'm so excited. I got to be at the first Mass for the Seton route. It was held at St. Mary's in New Haven, Connecticut, where Father McGivney's buried. So I got to be at that Mass, and then thanks to Catholic Vote, I have the opportunity to be at the closing Mass for it tomorrow. So it just seems,
I gotta
I'm
say,
very excited. I'm very
the focus of the bishops for the last 10, 15 years has been to build up on the Eucharist. It's central to our faith, and I'm glad that they're reemphasizing it. I think that's good, and I think as much can be done to emphasize Eucharistic adoration, and then exactly what that is, the Eucharistic processions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I brought it up to my priest. I'm like, hey, we should do a Eucharistic procession in this
a thing
town.
now.
And he's like, looked at me like I was from Mars. But when I think about adoration, what is it? I think about that time on earth, because all the different times. There's the time before Christ, and then there's Christ's time on earth, and then he raised his death and resurrection, and he's back with the apostles for a little bit, and then he has to leave. And there's that time after his ascension. Then Mary still yet has time on earth yet. And you think to yourself, what does that first church look like? And Mary's praying with the apostles and all that stuff. And all these Protestants are like, well, it's the Bible. That's the standard. It's like, well, what about the Christians for the first 300 years before you have a Bible set in place with the table of contents
before the Catholic Church put together
before the
Bible.
bishops put it together? So what did those Christians for the first 300 years do? They have the Mass,
the Eucharist,
and they have the Eucharist, and you think to yourself, that actually truly is now the body, blood, and soul and divinity of our Lord. And so think to yourself, what is Mary doing? Not only is Mary at Mass every time she could when she was on earth, but then think about how much time she spent in Eucharistic adoration of her Son.
Every day.
every day.
And so I think as we are approaching this Eucharistic Congress, think about Our Lady of the Blessed Sacrament before, adoring Jesus Christ, her Son, truly in that Eucharist. That is Him. And that's why, I wish this would be my free offer to the bishops. Why have the Feast of Our Lady of the Blessed Sacrament on May 13th when it's overshadowed by Fatima? And Fatima is a big deal.
Yep.
I would like you guys, this is your Josh Mercer free deal here, free offer, move that feast between the Ascension and the Assumption. That time when Mary is on earth yet. She hasn't yet finished her duty yet on earth. And she's before our Lord in Eucharistic adoration. Our Lady of Blessed Sacrament should be between those feast days.
I
That's
love
my
it.
Word.
Good.
my 2-cent idea.
Does
And Ascension
anyone-
Thursday should always be on a Thursday.
Yes. Wow. That's. I'm going to go to all my
shut him off.
beefs.
Separate
sorry,
episode
okay,
on,
all right. I shouldn't have brought it up.
on beefs. Does anyone have eyes on the chat?
Yeah.
Do you have
Did
any
anyone?
any chat tidbits for us?
Sorry for being like that.
So we-
Why are
we
you half
have-
an hour late?
We have
You're-
all the producers today
I know. it's
behind the
nice to
cameras,
see
getting
you all.
after it, making it
Even
happen.
the ones we don't like.
Yep. The good, the
Which
bad,
is
the
none of
ugly.
them.
Right.
We love all of our producers.
I don't know. Simon gives me the stink eye sometimes.
We got one coming in talking about the assassination attempt. At least find an agent as tall as Trump.
That's right.
That would be
exactly.
Good
helpful.
luck. He's a tall dude. Yeah.
Yep, totally.
He's not as tall. Well, that's going to be a problem though if his son ever runs for president. Barron
Facts,
is like
Barron's
7
like
feet tall.
7.
You mean the
One,
chosen one, Lisan Al-Ghaib?
I mean,
Dude, he has a
Okay,
Dune 2 arc
does
going
he
on right
not?
now. He's
Does-
this close.
Barron does look like a blonde Timothy Chalamet if you squint your eyes really hard. It's like, I can see why they're
The
getting all
chosen one.
freaked out. Yeah.
What he's had to witness
House of Atreides,
happened to his
there it
father.
goes.
Yeah, Paul Atreides.
I do wonder
Blue
though
eyes.
what's going to happen with the. I mean, it seems like the Trump family, they're going to, obviously, I do think he's going to get elected, and I think you still have to run. Every politician should run like they're 10 points behind.
Word.
But it does look like he's on the verge of another victory, thankfully. And then, like, if I were like Donald Trump Jr., like, you should run for office. You should run for Senate out of Florida. Tell Rick Scott to find something else to do.
Do we have anything
The
else out of the
dynasty?
chat?
We have a couple people saying, Tom, please don't go after my Star Wars.
Oh, whatever, dude. No one liked that one. Don't even lie. They can't lie to themselves. No one liked the last trilogy.
I'm not sure which point this was, but we have another person saying, wow, I actually agree with Josh on this point about the lack of importance of a platform right now.
Oh,
All
there
right,
we
could
go.
we get
Okay.
ones
That
not
was
agreeing with
not-
Josh?
yeah.
I feel like I don't like those as much.
Yeah.
You don't like those as much, but the problem is they happen so often.
I know.
it's
You got to
true.
sift
That's-
through all these
That's
comments.
what I'm saying. I'm like,
Although, hey, we did predictions, right? And who told you it was going to be J.D. Vance? This guy right here.
that's facts.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll see
Although
what
should
happens.
I could do my JD. I do have
My
a JD
prediction is that
story.
Biden's still going to be the nominee, that Trump's going to win, and he's going to win the popular vote, too.
So-
I'm putting down my markers.
All right, wait. You go first. I have a JD Vance story.
Okay, so I was just going to say, I forget what point in the conversation this was, but there's another one that says, oh my gosh, Pogo, please reenact it. So,
So you have to reenact something.
Oh wait,
Yeah.
was it the interview, the bullseye interview? Do I have to be Biden? I don't know if I could be Biden, man. Although I did see that
Be Lester Holt.
Shane Gillis dressed up as Trump
Oh,
for
that was
Kill
very
Tony. I
funny.
think Joe Rogan
That
dressed up
was
as
very
Biden.
funny.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, choice words were very funny. Any more from the chat or?
another one that I thought was interesting, someone agreeing with you regarding the anti-heroes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Right.
They're such a good literary tool, but they're written horrifically today, which I think we can all agree.
Yep.
Yep.
Yes, I
Yeah.
like those. Well,
Well,
those
the
that
thing
agree
is,
with me. Wait, sorry. I got to tell the JD story.
All right. I want your JD story.
All right, so 2022. Imagine 2022, Tom.
So when you were like
as-
15.
Right, I was 15. Some of you may know I'm the photographer here at Catholic Vote. So they're like, hey, like really last second, they're like, this guy. Well, we knew about JD Vance. He was running against Tim Ryan, and we're like, hey, we're gonna send you to Columbus where they're gonna do the RNC like party or whatever, because Brian's gonna be there, and we need one picture. We need a picture of Brian and JD after he wins, because we were pretty confident. Cross your fingers.
Got to do it.
And so, burn rubber over there with my camera equipment. I'm hanging out with Brian. And that was a really weird day for those of you who remember in 2022.
I do remember.
Yeah.
Because
Purple
so
puddle.
I was at
It was
a
not the red
party
wave.
and the vibes were good. And then to start, DeSantis crushes in Florida.
Yeah, it felt
Crushes,
good.
absolutely destroyed everyone in Florida. Red wave all
20
through Florida.
points. I'm
And-
like, this is going to be great.
and you were there too, yeah. And we're like, this is gonna be the best night ever. Like, we're gonna, after all the bad things that happened in 2020, we're so
Then the
back.
rest of the map starts coming in. Ruh-roh,
Exactly, and then everything was kind of this purple puddle, a lot of losses. Like, of course, shocker, Dr. Oz didn't do too well, which is in hindsight stupid. But so like it was a weird kind of lull. Like we were at a party and we knew like JD Vance was going to win, and people were still kind of sad. And so JD comes out, he brings the energy, gives a good speech, and so I have my camera. I have an extra long lens on there. There's like 1 second that he goes to Brian, and I'm like, hey, let me get a picture. I flash everything. And so I take like a bunch of many as I could of him and Brian, and then he moved on. He's off to go congratulate other people. And the picture that you see circulating through like Catholic Vote emails, the Loopcast, I had to do some work on it because I took that picture so fast. I had one of Brian in focus and one of JD in focus. I did not have one where both were in
we
focus.
did Pogo AI.
And I literally go to my wife and I'm like, I'm sweating so hard because I was like, maybe I was less sure of my status at Catholic Vote. Maybe Josh is going to fire me or something. But I was like, the one thing,
Maybe you were on the bubble.
one thing I was sent to go do, I have failed. I failed it. This was before AI was sick. Probably could help me out there.
Pogo.
And
My
I was
motherly
like,
heart is breaking
I know.
for you.
And don't worry, my wife's like, I got you. Say less. Literally comes back like 10 minutes later, fixed. picture of both
What a
JD
woman.
and Brian in focus. I was like, Claire,
Shout out to Mrs. Pogo.
I love you so much. So
You
saved
saved
my
her
life.
job,
And now that
saved-
picture's
yeah.
everywhere
And
now.
now
So
they're-
maybe I still will
the rest
fire
is
you and I'll hire
history.
her.
I know you should. She's much more talented than me.
That's a good story.
So yeah,
I
but good
mean,
times.
the real story is that Mrs. Oracle is better than me, but
There you go.
We knew that.
Smart men.
we can't afford my wife, so.
All right,
Here's
so
I'm who you get.
we ride into
All
the
right,
Twilight
we're
Zone
riding.
now. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Thank you for sending along and hanging out with us and waiting a little bit. Sorry about the delay. Tech stuff's always fun. Okay, so Twilight Zone, we got Josh.
No, I got nothing. I'm sorry.
Think on it. Think
That's good. That's good.
think on it. Let's
There's
go,
gotta be
Erika. Think on
something.
it.
Okay. I did do a little research for one thing today. All right. So
Okay.
we've got Joe Biden after the assassination attempt, feeling a little left out, right? Like he was the man in the spotlight for so many weeks,
true.
and he needed to find a way to get back in business. So he comes out with his newest campaign gimmick. He dropped this yesterday. He is going to put a 5% cap on rent increases. He is
saw
going
this.
to federalize
my
rent
gosh.
control.
Yeah.
Under the
What
plan,
could go wrong?
Here we go. Under the plan, landlords would either need to cap rent hikes at 5% a year or lose out on federal tax breaks. The rule, which would last through the end of 2026, would only apply to landlords who own more than 50 apartments. Those greedy, rich landlords. This is all predicated, of course, on the lie that anyone who is enterprising in America and has a large business is hateful and greedy, and we just need to force them to become as miserable as the rest of us. So this is rent control is probably not the sword you want to be waving on the hill as you ride off into your sunset, because rent control is probably an issue that unites progressives, liberals, conservatives, popular. Like we all know at this point that rent control is a terrible idea. This is from the Brookings.
Do we all know
Institute.
that though? People in
Yeah.
people in the Bronx know it.
That's in high school economics textbooks.
Doesn't-
They don't.
Yeah, and if
have
everyone
that
read
in their
that, if
high schools
everyone,
because they don't have school
Do
choice.
one
thanks
Google.
to Joe
We
Biden.
Googled this
Yeah.
earlier.
All right, Brookings Institute. While rent control appears to help current tenants in the short run, so instant gratification,
Yeah.
in the long run, it decreases affordability, fuels gentrification, and creates negative spillovers on the surrounding neighborhood. Landlords frequently respond to rent control policies, and we're talking 7 states have multiple cities right now with rent control left over from like the 70s and 80s. They respond to these rent control policies by reconverting rentals into buildings exempt from rent control, kicking out all their tenants, or by
no.
allowing rentals to just decay and fall into ruin because they can't afford to. It's the stupidest idea ever.
Yeah.
It's been tested, tried, proven wrong.
I'm not
Even the
exaggerating.
liberals
I
hate it.
read in a sophomore year economics textbook
Yeah, like
about
rent
rent
control.
control, and they used New York City as an example. And I'm like, how could we even do this in New York City? All of the buildings are filled with illegal immigrants who get free room and board paid for by us. So it's like, well, how are we going to
Lovely.
deal with that? So
Yeah, this is a man
Dumb.
who's like grasping at straws. When they pull out the rent control, you know it's like, we have nothing else to follow.
yeah. So I actually have one to cover, Josh, too. I have 2.
oh, that's wonderful.
So my first one, my favorite thing right now is people saying stuff that Project 2025 is doing that they're not actually going to do.
Yes.
I brought
Yes.
this up before, but steroid era of baseball is going to be back according to Project 2025. But we already have first campaign promise delivered from Project 2025. So one of the ones that really went viral was Project 2025 promises to bring back Pizza Hut buffet
Yes.
for lunch.
And the sit-down
And talk about something I
restaurants.
could get on board with, dude. As a kid, personal pan pizza, you get in there, you get your, you do all your library reading stuff, you get your little chips.
Man, the pizza was so much better there.
So Josh, I got great news. Project 2025 delivered. Pizza Hut is bringing back its beloved lunch buffet. We're so back.
But is it going to be the good pizza like 25 years ago with the old grease and
Dude,
stuff?
one thing at a time. We're so
Baby
back.
steps. Incrementalism, Josh.
All right.
Incrementalism.
Big time back on that
Answer.
front. So that's my
Are
first
we going to have
one.
like a Vatican Project 2025?
I wish.
Just asking.
And then
Next
my
week's
other
episode.
one is, so the picture that I always say this is going to be hanging in every dorm room probably till the end of time, that picture of Trump throwing up the fist
Fight,
after
fight,
getting
fight.
shot with the American flag in the background. So, I get a little tidbit from Axios. And I love how they put it in quotes too. A quote photo editor, end quote, at a quote major news outlet suggests media should bury the photo of Trump raising his fist because it is, quote, kind of free PR for Trump in a way.
Oh my gosh.
And it's dangerous for media organizations to keep sharing the photo despite how good it is.
If reality makes people vote Republican, you should try to suppress it. That's
Yeah,
like
dude.
don't show the buildings being blown up on 9/11 because of my people. You know that photo though of Trump being shot, you know, or not shot, but after he's walking off stage with this pistol like
Blood
that.
on his face.
You can now get that on a little glass where you can put your alcohol in. It's called a Trump shot. They sell it. I thought that was hilarious. That's so
such a
cool.
dad joke.
Like,
Dude.
yes,
Joke.
Trump
That's
shot.
awesome.
And he's like,
Like-
yeah.
And what was
Found
funny,
it.
I was thinking about that. I was like, it's funny that this conversation, that picture even exists. That picture probably wouldn't exist if the media wasn't so dishonest to begin with. Part of the reason Trump won in the first place was because he called out how dishonest and internally the narratives of these major news
I
outlets
mean, he only
are.
turned his head to point to the graphic of
That's
how
right.
illegal immigration. So Biden hadn't opened up the doors and done so bad on it. You know,
Trump
they
would be
actually
dead
interviewed
now, right?
Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin. He said, I had given him that graph like just 2 months earlier or whatever. And he goes, oh, I like this. And so we've been using it at the rallies ever since. And so he turns to point to the
Jumbotron, right?
jumbo.
Yep.
Is that last split second where he moves. And that's why he's not dead.
Crazy.
Amazing.
Nuts.
Total miracle, man. No
Our
doubts.
Lady of Fatima. I'm going with it.
So did I cover
Yeah,
for
although I
you?
think the graphic of the AI graphic of Mary pushing the blood out of the way,
Yeah.
which is a little
little much.
goofy.
Yeah,
It's
like,
a
come on, guys.
little over the top.
AI is ruining
But
Facebook.
first of all, it's their middle finger too, which is weird.
Well, yeah, it's AI.
That's weird.
Yeah, and
Okay,
you know what?
guys, you're
Honestly,
trying too hard.
I do think John Paul was right that Madonna moved the bullet in Fatima, but we didn't have the AI art back then, and it's better that way. Just there's the statue, and he takes the bullet and he puts it in her crown. Let's leave it at that. We don't need this kind of goofy AI schmaltzy stuff.
Exactly. We have God on our side. Like, God is with us. Who can be against us? And we don't need AI to help us. That's
Some of
the
these
big
Facebook
slogan.
things are a little.
Yeah, Facebook's been ruined by AI. It's
I
crazy.
don't even go on there anymore.
Exactly. I know.
it's just
You won't
like,
catch me
it's
on
so
there.
many ads, and they hide people that I want to keep up with. Yeah.
All right, so is this is the time where first live show
This
felt
was
pretty
fun.
pretty good.
First live show? What are you
First
talking
live show
about?
in person.
I did a live show with the presidential debate.
You weren't in person with us.
No,
I'm in
we thought
Josh.
you were like in the same
Josh,
room.
it's almost like
Sacramental
the show has
beings.
3 people in it,
Yeah,
3
you-
co-hosts
why are you
that are
arguing
on
with
every
us?
week pretty much, unless
just
someone's
trying to
on
get under her
maternity leave or- It's crazy. I know it's probably wild to you as the star of the show, but you have 2 co-hosts and we're all in person.
I'm not the star of the show. It's Erika.
but-
Everyone knows
That's
that.
true.
So I got the white chair.
That's why you got the white chair.
Yeah.
Very true. But yeah,
We're on the couch. We're just
all right, so I have 2
schlubs
asks.
here.
The boy couch.
I have 2 boys couch over here. 2 asks. 1, if you enjoy this, subscribe on the YouTube. Send me an email, loopcast@catholicvote.org. They're piling up. I know I need to get to them. I know. Reviews, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, help us out a ton. Like this episode too. We appreciate that. Me in person, I'm doing the finger. I don't know why I'm doing the YouTube finger. That's number 1. Number 2, we will be live streaming the Thursday Trump speech, the
Trump
JD
speech
speech,
at the
the Trump
RNC.
speech,
Join
similar to
us.
how we did the debate, except we've improved a little bit. We're going to be right here in this room in the studio, and it's going to be a great time. So I'm pre-advertising that. What time is that at? What time are we going live?
Oh,
I mean, his speech is usually at, was it 9?
9 p.m. Eastern, I believe.
Great.
We'll be a little earlier.
Whatever
but
it is.
Watch
Thursday
the
evening.
loop tomorrow. It'll be in the loop tomorrow, the exact time we're going to go live. We'll
Yeah.
have a couple drinks.
Half
have
an
a
hour
little
before a speech
Let's go.
goes.
Post
I'm in.
speech like rundown from Josh mostly. I will be sleeping in my white chair. And
Dude,
it'll be so much fun though.
You just should have
Watch-
seen me
watch
during
party.
the debate. I was like on standby basically to
Yeah.
like be called in, and I was like 2 Coronas deep, just yelling at my computer. Like when you guys were going, I was like, dude, I want to say something so bad. I was in the chat with the rest of you. It's actually kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like being in the chat. You're always, dude, during the chat during the episodes.
I know.
You're literally
I was
like,
surprised you
Josh
weren't,
goes
like, on
quiet,
there.
and all of a sudden I see him with like his phone.
I
down
love
the
my
corner,
people.
like,
I love
yeah, you
my
gotta talk to your
people.
people. I get it. But hey, this was a lot of fun. Thank you for joining us. As always, St. Thomas More, Our Lady of Guadalupe, St. Fidelis. Pray for us.
Oh,
We'll
we'll
see
add
you.
Our Lady of Mount Carmel too, because we're in Carmel.
Word.
And
Yesterday was her feast.
yes, the